So my name is Bibiane, and today I'll be presenting to you a project I worked on. So I'm an ETL data warehouse developer with Colaberry Inc. And the title of my project, as you see, is Supply Chain Health Commodity Shipment and Pricing Data Warehouse. So the question, why supply chain data warehouse? So basically, I've worked in the supply chain field, and I had so many challenges when I was working, being able to collect data from the data warehouse, finance, from procurement, and then consolidate this data and come up with reports for top management. It was really a big deal cleaning up this data. And interesting enough, I used to get like red flags from top management with regards to cost spend, high spend. And then looking at what is happening today, the COVID pandemic, you realize Ernst & Young did a research survey late 2020, and the respondents were mostly 200 senior level supply chain executives with over $1,000 billion in revenue. And what the stakeholders indicated based on the pandemic situation was that they had to some sort of re-strategize their supply chain moves and then look for a way to be resilient, collaborative, and network with their customers, suppliers, and stakeholders. And in order for them to do this, they said they would invest more in supply chain technologies like AI and robotic process automation, but at the same time, keeping their workers. So I got my data from two sources, the supply chain data from the USAID website and the country names and codes from GeoNames. Just some information about my data, the supply chain data. That the data set identifies antiretroviral and HIV lab shipments to supported countries in Africa, Asia, America. And then it provides the commodity pricing and associated supply chain expenses necessary to move these commodities to the various countries. And then it's a good way to understand ranges and trends in prices, as well as volumes delivered by country. So looking at my problem statement, customer expectation and delivery requirements are very important to every business. And the one thing is, when there is a poor on-time delivery performance, it's not all about the customer. It has something to do with poor production efficiency and material handling. So there was this survey done, a report came out, the 2020 MHI Annual Industry Report, and 4 of the top company challenges relate to higher customer expectation and faster delivery, including 51% who opted for lower cost, 48% for on-response times, then 47% for rising customer service expectation, and 41% for a kind of customization based on their customers. So I have this question to ask everyone. Have you been impacted somehow by the pandemic? Have you been in a situation where you want to order something and you want to get it in a week, and you realize you are getting it maybe in 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Anybody? I'm here. Anybody?
Almost all. I'm there.
All right, great. Thank you. So in order to build my data warehouse, to get a solution, I used 2 tools, the SSIS and the SSMS, SQL Server Management Studio. And the first thing I did was come up with my KPIs to serve as a guide as to what I had to load into my data warehouse. So I had 2 KPIs, the average delivery time and the percentage spent on health commodities, looking at the increase, decrease year on year. And this is the ETL process. I'll just do a kind of high level rundown on how I carried out the process. So the first was extracting my data and loading it into the staging table. So I got my data from a JSON file and Excel file. And then I had to use the various, based on business requirements, clean, transform the data, load it into the staging. And then loading my ODS, I had to, this is the process. I had to still use some business rules and then load my data. For the dimension tables, I had to write SQL query. I had to write queries. I created stored procedures, which I used to load the dimension tables. This is good for like performance improvement, like performance tuning. Then I loaded my fact tables. I had 2 fact tables and I used the lookup transformation and some business rules to load some other transformations to load the fact tables. And finally, I had this data model with 2 fact tables and 9 dimension tables. So in order for me to make sure everything was okay and get like an insight into this data, I wrote some queries and basically I came up with this positive insight. So you realize in Africa, Americas, and Asia in 2014, the average delivery time decreased significantly by minus 27%. And from 2011 to 2013, the average delivery time was only minus 1%. The business must have been happy with this because they might have been delivering prior to the scheduled delivery time or on time. Then I also ran another query against the data and I had this negative insight. Still in Africa, the Americas, and Asia in 2011, you realize that the spend on health commodities decreased by 31.57. The spend on health commodities increased by 31.57. And spend on health commodities decreased by an average of 0.02% per year from 2012 to 2015. This is the time when stakeholders will come up and will be like, something needs to be done because spending more money and not getting in that revenue, it's not a good sign for every business. And finally, I came up with some suggestions on how the stakeholders and supply chain department could do a good job to like keep their business running. First of all, the supply chain department has to review the list of vendors and third parties and kind of renegotiate their prices just to make sure that the process is competitive, and that way they will have good cost savings and they will improve on their process. And then secondly, the supply chain department has to work with the stakeholders from the various countries and continents. This is based on, just related to this project, but generally every stakeholder needs to work with the supply chain department. So they do a kind of forecast on the commodities they need. And once this is done, it's gonna help a lot with cost savings, making sure they have enough inventory for on-time delivery, and then cutting down on unnecessary inventory expenses and price fluctuations. And then the third thing that the business could do, like basically they don't have to look only at the bigger picture, just cost spend management. They have to look at spend visibility, because this way they will have a better understanding on the metrics that it will help them to kind of drive improved cost, process efficiency, and supply chain performance. So basically that is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, I am here to answer.
All right, everybody take your cells off of mute. Give Bibiane Woo, woo!
Good job. Good
All
job.
right, fantastic. All right. Celeste,
Yes, Ali.
what is your feedback?
So the delivery was amazing. Bibi, you obviously know your subject matter. I don't know if you've worked in supply chain before. I think you said you have. So you do know your KPIs. So I thought that was awesome. I don't think you identified, I don't know if you guys are supposed to do that because this is my first time judging and I've kind of been absent. But I think your layout, the presentation was awesome. When I looked at your slides, I think you had too much information on your slides. You could have, it seemed like you were reading off the slides. The problem statement was almost word for word. You could have just kept the later part of the portion, which is the last paragraph, which had the percentages, and then you could have just memorized the rest of the stuff. Other than that, it was awesome presentation. I think you know your stuff. Good job.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. This process is about getting better. So that was excellent feedback that Bibiane can take and use in later presentations.